Hello again, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. First up here, we've got a high wind watch out for the eastern Arctic coast over there toward Kaktovik, or including Kaktovik and Flaxman Island, and that stays out until about, it goes into effect Saturday afternoon and lasts in through Saturday night, and looking for winds to increase with the system coming by anywhere from 20 to 30 miles an hour sustained winds, or 20 to 40 mile an hour sustained winds with gusts possibly as high as 60 miles an hour. And again, that goes into effect tomorrow afternoon and through at least Saturday evening. Moving on to the fire danger graphic here, we've got still extreme here over the upper Yukon Valley area, especially around the Porcupine Yukon rivers in the flats, and improving back here to the west, but not so much here over the eastern interior because of the still had sunshine today. Temperatures at least into the mid to upper 70s this afternoon with sunshine, so really no precipitation there, but there is more clouds and cooler conditions coming in to the northwest and northwest interior, and so this area through here is gradually improving, and although southern Alaska here, south of the Alaska Range, not so much. I got a little bit of high fire danger there on the north side of the mountains, mostly the, say around Tok, maybe Northway. It's still pretty good through the Tanana Valley, through the upper Tanana Valley into the central interior. And then very high fire danger here, Copper River Basin and Kenai Peninsula up into the Matanuska-Susitna Valley with some areas of extreme in there as well, especially that zone that's been there so long for the Copper River Basin. Very dry conditions across that area there. And moving on to satellite imagery, can see clouds flowing from west-southwest to north-northeast here. And also there's thunderstorms developing this afternoon, actually right over the Talkeetnas, and moving off to the west-northwest, or I'm sorry, moving off to the east-northeast in west-southwest flow. Anyway, we had some scattered thunderstorms also from the Talkeetnas up to the northeast there into Canada, and that's about it as far as lightning goes. Had clearing out with areas of smoke, mostly over the Kenai Peninsula, big area of smoke sitting right over the fire area there. And that's poised to, if any south winds or southwest winds come in, that's poised to just roll right up across the inlet into the Anchorage area and maybe even beyond. That'd be later tonight and tomorrow morning. I just have to watch that and see. So don't be surprised to see a big increase in the smoke once again like we had the other day. Otherwise, some clearing there over Bristol Bay. Kodiak Island started out sunny today, and temperatures rose into the lower 70s, and then clouds moved in and back down below 70 currently at Kodiak State Airport, but the interior area is still in the mid-70s there with sunshine along and south of the Alaska Peninsula up through Shelikof Strait and into Cook Inlet. Some sunshine also allowing temperatures to bump up into the mid to upper 70s over the upper Yukon Valley. Even warmer here over the Copper River Basin with temperatures this afternoon running anywhere from 75 to 81 or so degrees there with sunshine, light winds. And Susitna Valley into the lower 80s again, near 80 at Talkeetna, Willow 82 degrees, and Big Lake, the warm spot this afternoon, 83 degrees, lower 80s down over the Kenai Peninsula as well with Ski Lac Guard Station reporting 81 degrees there with 70s, a lot of mid and upper 70s elsewhere. Otherwise, out over the Bering Sea, we've got a fairly strong area of high pressure at the surface here over the central Aleutians or east central Aleutians. Flow over the top of that, just a lot of clouds, almost completely cloudy there. Looks like a few breaks, though, possibly around the central Aleutians. And on the lee side of that northwesterly breeze there on the Pacific side of the Fox Islands, both Unmak and Unalaska Island. But, and actually Dutch Harbor did report some sunshine today. More moisture though here, keeping occasional light rain, fog, and drizzle going at Cold Bay to Nelson Lagoon, even Port Hayden, with light amounts, only about a few hundredths of an inch of precipitation, and then fog over the Pribilofs, low clouds, areas of fog all the way up to the Bering Strait there across St. Lawrence Island to Tin City. Same thing, Shemya fog, visibility is anywhere from 3/4 to 1.5 miles at times. Then we have this frontal boundary up here still draped across the north slope and occasionally moving, oscillating up or down, depending on these systems that come rolling across today. And we had rain continuing, this area actually moving off to the east, tapering off back to the west, winds gusting up to 25 miles an hour or so on the western Arctic, or the central Arctic coast there. And Kaktovik picked up 1/10 of an inch of precipitation, probably similar amounts down into the eastern North Slope and Brooks Range, with the thunderstorms right in this area, again from the Talkeetnas and drifting off to the northeast, with some pretty good sunshine, allowing those temperatures to warm over the Susitna Valley, Matanuska Valley, Kodiak, and the Kenai Peninsula. Isolated showers, not too much, maybe 2/100 of an inch worth, and that's about it at Petersburg today, only a few hundredths, so pretty isolated, scattered, and light conditions there. Low pressure here off the Kodiak Island coast there, that's circulating these clouds back in from the northeast now, so they're starting to roll in, and for tonight we'll see maybe a few showers ends up moving into mainly the east side of Kodiak Island there, but most of the moisture will stay off to your east. Not much change here over southern Alaska. Look for possible low clouds and the increase in the smoke, as I mentioned, Cook Inlet right on up into southern Susitna Valley, maybe the Matanuska Valley. And generally cloudy for the North Gulf Coast, diminishing showers here over the southeast interior areas. And this system pushes a fair amount of rain into the western Arctic coast and across the North Slope down to Kivlina, maybe the north side of the Seward Peninsula. It'll be pretty light in the southern edge there, but it'll be kind of a widespread area of light rain with this one traveling eastward. And then another one farther back out to the west will be moving along. And a trough coming over the top of that ridge again. Low clouds, fog, drizzle, and light precipitation. IFR conditions push right into the Yukon Delta and even to the Kuskokwim Delta, but to a greater extent over the Yukon Delta and Norton Sound. Be all IFR later tonight through that area. A little bit better here over Bristol Bay, and moisture lingers over the Alaska Peninsula. Dry for the Fox Islands, Adak and Atka. Fog for the Shemya area with possible drizzle. And then looks like for the let me back up this way. For the day on Saturday, tomorrow, areas of smoke here with that system pulling off to the east. You can see a fairly tight gradient with that here on the east side. So that's why we have the high wind watch up currently for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast for tonight, as that front and the winds kick, or not for tonight, for tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow night. And less thunderstorm threat here over the eastern Alaska range, but still a few showers, clouds, smoke, fair, I'd call it, over southern Alaska. And still chance of showers, isolated showers over the Panhandle. Outlook for Sunday, pretty strong system here coming out of the Russian Far East, so a big increase in the winds over the western Bering and even the St. Lawrence Island area up into the Bering Strait. We'll see a fair increase in the winds. Otherwise, that's going to not affect really it'll come eastward or northeastward Sunday night and Monday. Otherwise, it'll be a pretty nice day Sunday over much of interior Alaska, maybe some clouds, a little moisture here over into the southwest interior. Risk of a thunderstorm there, Nebezna, Tok, Northway. Sunshine, partly to mostly, depending on fog and low clouds. Here's southern Alaska, some rain with a weak system pushes into the eastern Aleutians. And the southeast coast still has a chance of showers over the southern areas, but it'll be partly sunny to the north. Lows down that way for tonight, mostly in the maybe upper 40s to lower 50s in this area. Mid 50s upper Yukon Valley with 50s all the way back to the southwest coast, 40s for the Arctic coast. And for the highs tomorrow, 70s, here's Susitna Valley, Kenai Peninsula, mid 70s, eastern interior, cooler back to the west, 50s for the Seward Peninsula. That'll be followed by lows on Sunday morning. Right around the 40-degree mark for the North Slope and lower to mid 40s, or I'm sorry, for the Arctic coast, lower to mid 40s for the North Slope, and 50s in the interior, 50s to upper 50s Susitna Valley area, and then that'll be followed by highs running mostly in the 65 to 75 degree range for south central Alaska with Mid to upper 70s for Sunday afternoon for the Copper River Basin. A little cooler here, 70, 75 or upper 60s to lower 70s for the eastern interior, and near 60 back to the west, upper 50s for the Yukon Delta, and 40s to lower 50s for the Arctic coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic, Saturday morning, IFR here, stretched from the southwest Bering right on up in across the Yukon Delta and some of the Kuskokwim Delta up to at least Bethel and a little beyond Norton Sound there, southern Seward Peninsula, Bering Strait, and then up the western north slope to the west central Arctic coast. VFR, central and northeastern interior areas, and some marginal VFR along the Alaska Range, a little more widespread over the Kuskokwim Valley. IFR, Gulf of Alaska, more, and then up to the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, and toward Whittier, North Gulf Coast, and possibly the Coast Range as well. IFR across all of the Panhandle. And for the afternoon, bring it up to marginal VFR with maybe some areas of VFR breaking out over the southeast coast. Less IFR here, still right along the south side of the Kenai Peninsula and very close into eastern Fognak and Kodiak Islands, with some marginal VFR lingering here across the Talkeetnas and up to the central western Alaska Range, and again more so in the Kuskokwim Valley west. IFR pulls back to right along the Yukon Delta coast, south side of St. Lawrence Island, and continues out here over the western and northern Bering Sea. And then for Sunday morning, bring some IFR back into the central Aleutians on out to Shemya, and then over the northern Bering once again pulls in across Yukon Delta, Norton Sound, southern Seward Peninsula areas. We've got some VFR breaking out, or VFR here, at least a start over the Brooks Range North Slope area into the northern Koyukuk, Kobuk valleys, but a lot of marginal VFR here in the central interior, and areas of VFR, Copper River Basin, Cook Inlet, Susitna Valley, and the Iliamna area to northern Bristol Bay, and Shelikof Strait. Otherwise, marginal to IFR right in across the Panhandle. For the afternoon Sunday, improvement here. Mostly VFR now for the southeast coast. Some lingering marginal VFR, Yakutat over toward maybe Cordova, Prince William Sound, the whole VFR, and northeast Bristol Bay, Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, right on up across all the central and eastern interior. And the North Slope looking really good, and the eastern stretch of the Beaufort Sea coast here also in the VFR zone with some marginal back to the west. IFR, central western Aleutians, Bering Sea, Pribilofs marginal, eastern Aleutians marginal, Alaska Peninsula, same thing, marginal VFR. Passes Zanutuvik and Atigan, both starting out highest conditions in the in the morning hours, deteriorating in the case of Anatuvik, probably IFR possibly, and then I'll go for marginal VFR for Atigan. As far as Lake Clark and Merrill goes, marginal VFR, western approach on both passes early, otherwise VFR through the main pass itself, and definitely on the east side. And that same pattern also in forecast for Rainy as well, starting out marginal western entrance, then becoming VFR. Windy, occasionally marginal throughout the entire day, risk of a thunderstorm. And Isabel, a little bit better chance of a thunderstorm, but still just a slight chance. And again, VFR becoming marginal throughout the day, depending on how much convection builds and how low the ceilings get. And that same forecast also good for Mentasta. Tanita, VFR, Portage, mostly marginal. And Chilkoot and White, starting out marginal, becoming VFR. Freezing levels, 10,000 feet here from the Bering Sea and across most of Alaska, the interior, even the Gulf of Alaska, down to about 8,000 over the southern Panhandle. And then quite a gradient up here associated with upper level Arctic jet. So we got 2,000 feet just off the western Arctic coast. As far as icing goes, in that jet caught up with the disturbances passing on by, we've got a pretty good one clipping across just north of the eastern Arctic coast tomorrow afternoon. With that will be icing area here, moving with it from west to east, and this next one out here to the west over the Russian Far East, that'll be making landfall here on the northwest coast, probably late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. Jet stream, 70 to 90 knots, carrying those systems from the Russian Far East into northern Alaska, and wow, excuse me. Northwest flow here, pretty weak over the Bering Sea, basically high pressure holding across southern Alaska. 9,000 feet looking like this. Westerlies 25 to maybe 45 knots. Northern interior Brooks Range lighter to the south, 3,000. Strongest up here maybe 20 to as high as 40 knots out of the west-southwest. Lighter 5 to 15 over the Bering Sea and the or across 5 to 10 over southern Alaska. 5 to 15 for the Panhandle. Turbulence-wise, considerable moderate chop here. Central Brooks Range on out to the eastern Arctic coast.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining us once again is our good friend Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. He is here and has been here many times to talk to us about weather satellites and how those can help Alaskans understand our weather, how we can do better detection, keep more people safe from things even like volcanic ash. But today, Eric, you're going to talk to us a little bit more about weather satellites and how that can keep Alaskans safe and protect our property from wildfire, right?
That's right, Dave. Today's topic is where there's smoke, there's fire. And thanks for having us back again to Alaska
Anytime.
Weather. Well, weather satellites have a lot of different instruments on them. It turns out that the electromagnetic spectrum has a lot going on in it, and only one part of that is visible light, what we see.
Right.
Weather satellites, of course, report that. Today's topic is wildfires. There are some people who say that in Alaska in the summertime you don't have severe weather. These people are usually from Oklahoma or somewhere, and F5 tornadoes tend not to occur in Alaska.
Right.
People have also said what we do have in the summer. What is Alaska's severe summer weather can be hydrology,
Right.
flash flood and erosion in the mountains and things like that, and fires, wildfires.
Absolutely.
Those were here in 2004, certainly remember that. We've got an example here from 2014. Now it was a quiet season overall, but in May, down on the Kenai Peninsula, we had a wildfire on the Funny River, and this is a satellite image from a polar orbiter that went right over Alaska, and we can see the plume of smoke coming out of that fire on the Kenai, curling down. It's caught in the wind. It goes down toward Kodiak Island, curves around. You can see it circulating around a low pressure system that's in the Gulf of Alaska.
It was a beautiful picture.
Oh my gosh.
Except there was a fire.
There's a fire there. The nice thing is with this satellite image, you can tell where the fire origin is, where the smoke is coming from. And it's a color image. We're looking at the wavelength spectrum of about 0.4 to 0.7 micrometers or microns. That's what the human eye would see. If you were riding on the satellite and looked down, you could see this kind of an image.
Right.
So that's pretty nice. But it turns out there's more to the electromagnetic spectrum than just visible light.
Okay.
You've heard of infrared, ultraviolet, that kind of thing. If we move into longer wavelengths, let's go to one specifically, 3.7 microns.
Okay, 3.7.
Why worry about that one? Well, we've got an example here. 3.7, it turns out, happens to be very sensitive to a certain temperature range, temperatures where fires burn.
Okay.
And so we've got an example zoomed in a little more from that same Funny River fire down on the Kenai Peninsula, and we can see that you get up into a few hundred degrees Fahrenheit, and that's where the colors are. We can see there on the Funny River fire to the west and to the east, almost a horseshoe shape there, is not only we're seeing where the fire is in a general sense, but specifically where it's the active fire
That is where
front.
it's burning right now.
And it's
Amazing.
3.7 microns is the important temperature there.
Okay.
That's right.
So this is really important to firefighters on the ground, people that are making plans and directing the firefighters on where they need to go and cut the trenches and keep people safe.
You know it. If you want to fight that fire, you got to know where it is.
Okay.
You got to know the leading edge. We've also got a movie loop, nothing quite like animating it in time.
Yeah.
You can see the fire spreading out over time with a succession of film or a succession of images. Now this is one channel, 3.7 micron. You know, we looked at that color smoke image before.
Right.
And that's actually a red, a green, and a blue. That's how you get color imagery. What if you took 3 different wavelengths in the infrared? You went from like 2.2 micron, 1.5 micron, up to 3.7. You mix them together, you get this other kind of color image, which is even a better way to sharply bring out the details of where that leading edge of the fire is.
Okay.
You'll note, though, in the infrared, guess what? We don't see the smoke. That's too bad. And on these movie loops, you can see the clouds go by. These channels can't see through clouds. The lesson is there's no one perfect solution. You got to have the visible, you got to have some of that infrared single 3.7 channel, some of the infrared mixing to help get a different perspective. another one, we've talked before about a fun channel called the day-night band.
Yes, one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, and in Alaska in the winter, it's great. We've got all this darkness. The day-night band is so sensitive to seeing light. You can see features that otherwise aren't available. Now in Alaska, when you have a forest fire, it tends to be light out all the time.
Right.
It's our summer. But we can go down south to the Rim Fire in California in 2013. Now, okay, it was in California, not Alaska, but Alaskan crews went down to fight that fire, so we can talk about it here on Alaska Weather. Here we have a 3.7 micron channel shot of the rim fire, again, kind of a horseshoe shape, showing that active fire front down there. And then we'll look again to the day-night band, the visible light, and then you can see how the fire is all bright. You can see the active fire front and actually the city lights over there too. Turns out that the cities, while they're active in a social sense, are not really hot in a fire sense. So they don't show up in the 3.7 micron. They're not hot like a fire is, but the fire in the cities look the same from a visible light perspective. And a fun thing here too is that we can see the smoke plume going north from the rim fire on the day-night band. So if we were ever to have, like in 2004 in Alaska, you get dark at night, we still had an active fire season that year. That was you know, that really bad year. The day-night band didn't exist then, but if we had fires now in August, we could use it then. The lesson here is weather satellites, they offer many different wavelengths of light. Some are used for different purposes, and some of these we just looked at tonight are especially helpful here in Alaska to find and to track the behavior of these wildfires so the crews can go out there and do their jobs.
Sure, sure. So a satellite toolbox for the firefighting crews and the fire weather forecasters, and it just underlines how important satellites are, especially for Alaska and our mission for the National Weather Service to protect life and property, and also to enhance the national economy. So wonderful stuff there, Eric. And people can look at pictures like this anytime by going to gina.alaska.edu. You'll find images there all around Alaska at various times of the year, and not just about fire weather, but volcanic ash and smoke and anything else you want to check out. They're always beautiful pictures and always interesting to look at no matter what time of the day. Thanks again for joining us, Eric. We appreciate it and welcome you back anytime. For this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider. See you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the Stargazer segment. Sea ice conditions for today are the sea ice chart. Here, still mostly open. Not a lot of changes again going on with the heavy ice along and north of the Barrier Islands. And not much change out here to the west either, and none really expected over the next 5 days. Coastal water forecast south to southeast at 15 knots here for the south coast. Seas 6 feet. And 5 to 6 foot seas with south to southeast winds on the north coast at 10 knots. South 15, Lynn Canal and Clarence Strait and Stevens Passage both at 10 knots from the south with seas down to 2 feet or less. And for Saturday, for Stevens Passage, not much change. South to southeast winds on the light side, just 10 knots, seas slight, and south 15 for Lynn Canal. Southeast at 10 on the south coast, seas down to 4 to 5 feet now, and east-southeast 10 to 15 on the north coast with 4-foot seas. And for Cook Inlet, southwest winds 20 knots south of the Forelands, south 15 here for northern Cook Inlet. Small craft advisories for Kamishak Bay. For those west winds at 25 and seas at 8 feet. And north at 15 there for the Barrens, northeast 15 for the western North Gulf Coast, southeast 15 on the east side. Prince William Sound variable to northeast, light 10 knots with seas no more than 2 feet. That turns more easterly on Saturday, but stays pretty light, and those seas down low too at 2 feet. And easterlies at 15 knots there in the zone around Middleton Island. 10 knot winds for the western North Gulf Coast out of the east. Also for the Barren Islands. Also for Kamishak Bay, really coming down, swinging around direction there, and the seas dropping off too from 8 feet tomorrow to 2 feet Saturday, south to southwest at 10 for Cook Inlet with 2 to 3 foot seas. Kodiak Island, west-northwest, 15 to 20 tomorrow. Much stronger winds though. You can see small craft advisories here on the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula from Sitkinak to Cape Saratchev. Northeast 25, gusts up to 40 knots, so gale force gusts there. West 25, Bristol Bay, 6 foot seas, and northwest 20 on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. And taking a look at Saturday, lighter winds here for Kodiak a little bit, just west to north, 15 knots, 3 to 4 foot seas. And lighter winds also Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Still holding on to the sustained 25 knot small craft advisories, but losing the gale force gusts. Seas coming down to 6 feet. And northwest at about 20 here from Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev, and west 15 for the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, Bristol Bay, west 20, seas 5 feet. Western Aleutian, southwest 15 to 20 knots with 4 to 5 foot seas. Pretty light for Adak and Atka. Southwest at 10, 3 to 4 foot seas. And we got small craft advisory south of Unalaska Island. For northwesterlies at 25 and seas at 6 feet. Otherwise, west 15 to 20 elsewhere. And then for Saturday, northwest 20, south side of Unalaska Island with 10 to 15 knot winds for the remainder of the eastern Aleutians, and south to southeast of 15, excuse me, for Adak and Atka, and then southwest 20 from Kiska to Shemya. And for the southwest coast, westerlies 20 knots, sustained, pretty uniform there with 6 foot seas. Same thing for the Pribilofs, southwest 20, 7 foot seas, St. Matthew Island. Southwesterlies 20 knots, St. Lawrence Island, drop it down to 10 knots, same direction for Norton Sound. And then 20 knot winds into Norton Sound, and 20 knot winds for St. Lawrence Island as well as St. Matthew Island and areas north of Nunivak Island there for the Yukon Delta coast. All 20 knots, seas 5 to 6 feet or 5 to 7 feet. West at 15 here, south of Nunivak Island, west 20 for the Pribilofs. Beaufort Sea tomorrow, small craft advisories here, 25 knots on the central coast, sustained 30 knots on the east side, southwest 20 on the west coast, and 15 knots coming around from Cape Beaufort, and 20 knots from the south from Cape Thompson to Wales. Those turn north at 20 knots there from Wales up to Cape Thompson, then Cape Thompson right up the west side, northwest 15, northwest 20 for the central coast, and then southeast 20 knots for the entire eastern stretch of the Beaufort Sea coast for Saturday. And for tonight, we got this weak frontal boundary dropping into the central interior, and there'll be cloudy skies, higher humidities, and maybe some moisture, light amounts of precipitation with it. Nothing more than 1 to 2 tenths tops. Some areas won't see anything at all. Dry here over southern Alaska, staying hopefully mostly clear for Kodiak Island. Isolated low clouds, fog, and drizzle, Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, southeast Bering. And jumping ahead to Saturday, not too bad over southern Alaska or up over the northwest. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.